Right Side News, bring you the right news for the right side. I'm Jim Hoel. I am your voice. Good evening. Welcome to a college football final edition of the Hoel Report. As tonight we saw once again a dominating performance by Alabama and the Crimson Tide, who will be taking on Dabo, Swinney, and Clemson in the college football national title game. On the earlier part of the day, we had Clemson taking on Notre Dame. As I thought, Notre Dame, they turned out, in my opinion, they were even more overrated than I thought. I thought that would be a much closer game than it turned out to be. But Clemson dominated that game from the very start, and Notre Dame was never really in it. So, Clemson went on to blow out Notre Dame, and Dabo will have his Clemson Tigers in yet another national title game against his probably greatest foe, Nick Saban, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. This is, I believe, the third one of these. I believe they've split the series, third or fourth. Is it the third or fourth one? Alabama won. Yeah, they beat them the first time. Clemson beat them, and so I think they're tied. I think this is the third Alabama Clemson national title game in the last 5 or 6 years. But over recent years, especially, it's been Alabama and then Clemson. So it's kind of like 1A and 1B. You know they're both, barring a disastrous upsets by either team. You know that at the end of the year, Alabama and Clemson are 99% going to be in the top four, which has been the case for the last 3 years. Now, Alabama's performance tonight, they started out on fire, as I thought they would. They were up, I believe, 28-7 midway through the second quarter. So they built themselves a nice lead. Oklahoma came on strong there a little late. That's what Oklahoma is known for, scoring in bunches and very quickly. So Oklahoma came on strong there late, gave Alabama a little rise for their money, but in the end, Alabama proved to be what they are, and that is the number one team in the nation. Which Oklahoma had, they got nothing to hang their heads about. They performed. They at times they played very well. Lincoln Riley is a rising star. In fact, he could be one of Nick Saban's replacements. I mean, if when the day comes that Nick Saban does retire, which could be, I doubt it, but it would. A lot of people would lose their minds if he just won the title this year and hung him up. But I think we're looking at 2 or 3 years down the line. But anyway, Lincoln Riley is a rising star in the coaching ranks. He has had NFL interests already, so NFL teams are already interested in him. That's a big question for college coaches too. But that all just depends on what they like better. I felt that I felt that the Alabama-Oklahoma game was certainly more exciting. The Clemson game was over at halftime, but that makes it interesting for the national title game. Like I said, Clemson can upset Alabama. I strongly believe that. I believe that Clemson can very well upset Alabama. Dabo Swinney is really the only coach in the nation that can beat Nick Saban on a neutral playing field on a regular basis. If Alabama and Clemson played 10 games, I'd say Alabama would take it probably 7-3, 6-4. But still, Dabo Swinney has proven that he can beat Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. Clemson is also undefeated. I believe that they are underrated, actually. And I think Dabo does too. But, you know, for what they did this year is also remarkable. And to have the annual success that Clemson has had under Dabo Swinney is a testament to his ability to coach. So, we will have our national title game. It is set. It will be the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Clemson Tigers for the title. Right now, my heart is going with Alabama, but that could change. Like I said, there's a little part of me that thinks that Clemson could pull it off. The one thing that we could all agree on, hopefully, is that the top two teams in the nation will be playing for the national title. Which, I know this new college football playoff format, it's iffy, it gets a lot of, complaints, and there's always the ones who bitch about the fifth or sixth team left out. But, really at the end of the year, this is what you want. You want the two best teams in the nation playing for the national title, and that's what we will have. There is no doubt in my mind that Alabama is 1 and Clemson is 2, and that's who we will have in the national title game. I liked the old BCS format as it was always a pretty good predictor in my opinion, but at least in this format with the 4 teams, you have a chance that maybe some team would get upset, and we could have like we could have had an Oklahoma Notre Dame college football national title game, which would have been equally as enticing. Oklahoma Notre Dame would have been a great one in my opinion. They're That's one of the oldest rivalries, college football rivalries there is, if I believe, is Notre Dame and Oklahoma. If we had that one, that would have been a great one too. But tonight it was all domination from start to finish by the number 1 and 2 teams in the nation. And we will have them playing for the national title game, I believe, next Monday night. So it's one to look forward to, folks. Alabama, Clemson, Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, the Alabama alum, and the only one who's proven his ability to beat Nick Saban, at least on a semi-regular basis. And without being in the SEC as well. So, that being said, so tonight was exciting. We had some good games. We had a little college basketball earlier in the day. We had Kentucky take it on Louisville. John Calipari, another solid win. That team's really starting to heat up. So watch out come March. I tell you, watch out come March because, Coach Cal, if they keep getting better at the rate they are, they'll be in the Final Four. So it's a fun time for sports right now. It's, that time of the year, right before we get the, it's funny. There's always, this is one of the best times. And then right after this, the Super Bowl, right after the Super Bowl, you got nothing. You got nothing all the way up till March Madness. So enjoy your sports. If you're a sports fan, enjoy them now because that dreaded period from the end of the Super Bowl to the beginning of March Madness will soon be here. So, let's enjoy the college football national title game, and let's just enjoy sports while we can before we go into that dark period before March Madness. And then I'll probably do shows dedicated to that. But anyway. Now, talking about getting into something that I went into last night, continuing on with this story about this caravan and the president threatening to cut off funding and aid to these countries. President Trump threatens to close the southern border entirely if Dems won't fund the wall. It's posted on Right Side News. This is from The Hill. This is by Chris Rodrigo from The Hill reporting. President Trump on Friday threatened to... yesterday President Trump threatened to close the southern border entirely if the Democrats do not agree to provide the funding necessary to finish building a wall on the Mexican border. He has threatened to close the southern border entirely. He made this threat as a partial government shutdown and enters its seventh day with no clear end in sight. We will be forced to close the southern border entirely if the obstructionist Democrats do not give us the money to finish the border wall and also change the ridiculous immigration laws that our country is saddled with. So, the president tweeted this out yesterday. He also criticized past presidents and congressmen over the nation's current immigration laws. Hard to believe that there was a Congress and president who would approve. So, Donald J. Trump came out swinging, and he hit him right in the jaw. So he's coming out strong. In fact, one tweet he had was one of several Trump tweets wrote on Friday morning as he shut down increasingly looked like it could drag well into 2019. In his second tweet, tied the fight over the wall to another one of his signature issues, trade. He said that the U.S. was losing money through the North American Free Trade Agreement and that closing the border would be a profit-making operation. Donald Trump tweeted out that under NAFTA, the United States loses over $75 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars a year, not including drug money, which would be many times, well, that would probably be in the hundreds of billions. That I would consider closing the southern border a profit-making operation, or we build the wall. So, nearly 500 million people enter the U.S. each day at various entry points through the southern border, this according to a Wilson Center report cited by CBS. Duncan Wood, director of that institute, said that shutting down the border would cost hundreds of millions of dollars a day, or maybe $1 billion. Trump also said that closing the border would help the U.S. auto industry, which that may be true, actually. So he concluded his tirade of tweets by accusing Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador of taking money from the U.S. and threatening to cut off aid to the countries. So that's where he ended that, with once again threatening Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Which really everything he said is true. Those countries do just take advantage of us. Their governments do. Certainly that money that should be going down there for aid, there's really no clear answer where that money's going. When the U.S. Army or National Guard drops medical aid or supplies into these places, a lot of it's just confiscated. There's been, a lot of goodwill ambassadors, missionaries get trips down to these poor South American nations, and they all say the same thing, that any aid that countries provide is confiscated by their own governments. And the money's also confiscated as well, and it's used for whatever the hell they want. And then they tell them to go head up to the United States. So, with another caravan, yet another one that's being formed in Honduras, apparently, getting ready to make the trek on up here, now he is threatening to close the southern border entirely. This is a move that I would support. I would have no problem if he closed the southern border entirely. Not at all. If anything, I think he should, because it's very, very clear and very obvious that these countries and their spineless leaders and their corrupt governments will not stop. They're not going to stop this. They're not going to stop these caravans. The DNC, the Democrats, these politicians, they have a good thing going on with, sending these immigrants up here and claiming asylum and registering them as voters, and they all tell them to go vote for Democrats. And they do because they don't know any better. To them, it's, why wouldn't they? Hey, these Democrats, they bought us all up here. Until they find out that, life in the United States for migrants and immigrants is really not that, it's not that easy at all. It would be like me picking up and moving to, Afghanistan or Guatemala or Honduras or any of those places. Life for immigrants in the United States, and I don't know where they get this idea that when they cross the border, they're going to have it made, because they don't. A lot of these people lead very sad lives. They're cut off from their families. The ones that really are in need of asylum come from countries where governments have fallen, failed states, military coups, you name it, or they are persecuted for their religious beliefs. The United States does provide asylum to Christians who are being butchered by Islamic extremists and terrorists, and a large segment of the Islamic population over in the Middle East. They torture and kill Christians all the time. And I think we should be offering asylum to them rather than this marauding caravan of foreign invaders who are going to once again attempt an invasion of our homeland, which will not happen and will not be allowed. And in the meantime, we have Christians in the Middle East who are having their heads cut off because they don't believe in Allah. And, certainly it's not, I'm not saying all of Islam, but there's an extremely large segment that they believe that violence is the solution to all of their problems. The difference is Christians and Muslims. And this is from Jordan Peterson and several scholars and academics and religious leaders. Muhammad was a warlord. In the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad, he was a warlord. Very violent, a lot of barbarian. It's not, and the Bible had it too, but not to the extent. But it's just, in the old books. Jesus Christ was not a warlord. In fact, Jesus said, war does not make you Lord. So the big difference between Islam and Christianity is that, Muhammad was a warlord, Jesus was not. And, I'm not trying to get into a big religious debate, but, when you talk about asylum and asylum seekers, and then you have the mainstream media who go cry and throw a fit and get all their social justice warrior nonsense out of the way about how we are unfairly not allowing, these poor immigrants from the southern, into our southern border, and how bad we treat them and how we separate them from their families and lies. And then you get pictures from the Obama administration that is portrayed as the Trump administration. I mean, seriously. They had a picture of a detention center where families were being held, and it was taken during the Obama administration. And I believe it was the Washington Post. Well, there were several of them. Several media outlets used this and blamed it on Trump's government. When it's not the case. It's not the case at all. So you have them whine about that, but you never hear them report about these Christians who are being butchered in the Middle East, who are in desperate need of asylum. And, instead they want to complain about us not taking in Muslims. And all of these migrants who won, and I do mean this, sincerely, they probably don't want to be here. Like I said, once they get here, they'll realize that, they a complete culture shock. I mean, seriously, it would be like me picking up moving to Afghanistan or a third world country for them to come to the United States and see the how the Western world operates. That's like a complete 180. So, really, I wouldn't. I would not mind if he just closed the southern border entirely for who knows how long, a period of time, to be determined. But, I kind of hope he does, and shows these people that no, we're not going to take this crap no more. So it'll be interesting to see and find out what goes on. The government shutdown is still going on. The United States is still getting on with our lives. Apparently Nancy Pelosi's vacationing in Hawaii. I'm sure that all of our, all of those responsible for the shutdown had a wonderful holiday in their mansions and vacation homes, while the president stayed in Washington. So imagine that. You got a billionaire who could go to Mar-a-Lago and just celebrate the holidays, and he's the president of the United States. But he chose to stay in Washington because the government is shut down by a bunch of moronic Democrats who, instead of wanting to fund the wall, they'd rather fund a bogus investigation that's been going on for 2.5 years as to whether or not he colluded with the Russian government. So they still want to investigate colluding instead of building a wall. I mean, Jesus, would you just build the damn thing? I mean, we need it. It's the only missing component of the Stimson-Mazzoli Act, which results in the United States necessitating an amnesty every 10 to 20 years. If we have a wall, we won't need to have this conversation every 10 to 20 years about exactly this, illegal immigration. So, I, for one thing, just build it. I mean, it's not, it is certainly not, that is, the funding for it. For one thing, when you compare it to our defense budget, or many other budgets for that matter, the funding for the wall is nothing. The funding for the wall is probably a sentence in some bill. It was like $5 billion, something like that. And you got these GoFundMes raising money for the wall. I don't know how they're going to get it. Who are they going to give that to, by the way? You got. I think I read some guy raised $17 million. I mean, is everybody just going to build their own wall? I mean, hell, is he going to build a wall? Maybe he can build it. Who knows? Maybe I'll build it. I'll start a page. Just send me money. I'll build a wall. I'll get on time and under budget. But the United States government just wants to take a few weeks off, I guess, because of their hatred for the president. So they'd rather shut down the entire government, which is not good. It's not going to go well for them. Every American can see that this is not the president's fault. I mean, he put them on TV to show. I mean, come on. Donald Trump put Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi on television to show the American people just exactly who is responsible for this shutdown. I mean, Chuck Schumer couldn't even look him in the eye. And all Nancy Pelosi wanted to do was rattle on and on and on about stupid, how he's, abusing his power or whatever the hell she was talking. I don't even know what the hell she was talking about. So you had her pandering to the cameras, and you had Chuck Schumer who couldn't even look at him. And you had Donald sitting there saying, look, see, these people are idiots. And I thought it was great. Hopefully he does more of that, And really, it is a constraint, like he said, it's about transparency, Nancy. And really, it's a transparent way of doing it. And really, if you notice, a dialogue can be started that way. He's a smart man. And I think he also just wanted to show the American people that, yep, it's their fault. And it is. Anyway, that's about all the time we have for tonight. This has been another edition of the Hoel Report. Please continue to subscribe and like our page. Follow me on Twitter at JHHoel. Follow Right Side News, Facebook page, website, the YouTube page. Please like and follow us. We fighting the fight we do for truth, justice, and the American way. We need all the fighters we can have. So join us and join the fight. Thank you, America. Have a good night and roll damn tide.